a massive class action lawsuit that was filed by many different people in Michigan against Governor Rick Snyder, against other state officials. And the judge basically pulled all these separate people filing charges into one lawsuit. A judge literally dismissed Rick Snyder and other state officials as defendants. Dismissed meaning let them off. They are no longer defendants in this class action lawsuit.
There's a crazy law. It's a class action lawsuit,
Yes.
so it's not even criminal.
No, this is a civil suit. Rick Snyder and other state officials were dismissed from this lawsuit, citing the judge said they have sovereign immunity as state officials. And sovereign immunity basically is a, to me, ridiculous law that says if state officials are carrying out their government job duties, they cannot be sued civilly. Um, I think the point is in Flint, they were not carrying out their government duties. And because of not carrying out those government duties, they literally were responsible. PBS just did a story. It's not 12 people that died of Legionella in Flint. It's upwards of 120 might have died from Legionella in Flint. Rick Snyder knew there was a problem in Flint long before he said they did. All these state officials knew there was a problem. They knew before they even switched the water that the Flint River was an industrial dump site since the early 20th century. Not just General Motors, other industrial polluters dumping all sorts of things in there. Not to mention, you had other dams like the Holloway Dam and other other water sources streaming into the Flint River that had everything from pesticides to all sorts of things that are very hard to treat chemically to get out of your water. So they knew switching to the Flint River, they knew that is not a clean enough river and it's very hard to treat with the chemicals that they treat. But also, they also knew they weren't adding the proper corrosion control chemicals because the EPA kept saying to them and asking for confirmation, you're adding corrosion control chemicals into the Flint River, correct? And the state of Michigan Environmental Agency kept lying about it. So you have a governor, and this isn't just about Flint or Michigan. This is about how do you get accountability in this country? We're getting accountability for like Paul Manafort, who did, extorted money and did all these things illegally from Ukraine to other countries, but that doesn't affect communities. I'm not saying he shouldn't go down, he should, but it seems like the accountability police, and we get special prosecutors for high-level political types like Paul Manafort or Michael Flynn that juice up the Democratic Party and juice up partisans on both sides. But how is it that a governor who presided over the poisoning of American citizens, which, by the way, we just came from Flint, you might not know because, again, YouTube is suppressing our content. All our videos are already up. There's 3 to 5 hour lines at local churches to get 2 cases of water. People are scavenging for water still over 4 years later in Flint.
Two cases, and that doesn't include like the people that, because a lot of people that we were talking to don't have cars, they don't have a means of transportation. So if you go into, and I mean, hats off to them, they're not even getting money from the local government. They're actually, it's all donations. So I understand that it has to be rationed out. I'm not saying this to speak against what they're doing. I'm saying this to speak against the government shutting down the actual pods, because I know the intention is to try to make sure everyone gets the most that they can give to everyone. But if people don't have a car and you got 3 people in one car and they all live in 3 different households, but they're like, we can only give 2 per car, then that becomes a huge issue because some people don't have cars and the pods are a mile away, 3 miles away, and you got an older person, one case, y'all was carrying a case up the stairs and y'all could only carry one. You know what I'm saying? Cases, they're heavy, so I think to speak back on what you said that the Governor Snyder had sovereignty because he was a state official. In the Constitution, they have a thing, they guarantee the pursuit of happiness. What is it? What is it? What's the three? Liberty, happiness, the pursuit of happiness. How does it go?
The
Justice,
pursuit.
liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So we're guaranteed the pursuit of happiness. So we understand what the pursuit is. That means it's being available, then you have to pursue it. So I think that people, and it's probably sound a little tongue in cheek, but people that are forced to have to do other things like sell drugs and probably commit crimes because the government has taken the community centers, the jobs out of their community, like sucked their community dry, and they're not guaranteed the pursuit of happiness in their community. They should be immune for the crimes that they commit.
Preach, preach. But the point is, we have a legal system. Yeah, some people go away, but how is it? I mean, and by the way, just the responses, I'm not going to say who. I got a response from an editor yesterday from a pretty big Michigan outlet, telling me, well, your story is interesting that we found evidence that the Michigan Environmental Agency literally cheated on the water testing. I repeat, cheated on the water testing. But, other areas than Flint have high lead levels. So is this really a big thing? Yeah. Other areas with high lead levels, like Chicago, which we're going to talk to someone soon about that today, it doesn't mean other areas shouldn't be covered, but those areas were not poisoned by their government through man-made decisions to switch to a toxic water source. And they didn't, and those areas didn't have a massive cover-up for 18 months to say there wasn't a problem. And, I understand sovereign immunity in some cases, but you're a public official. When you make that decision to run,
knowingly make the position, if there's anyone that probably should be like kind of exempt from something like this, or maybe the people that were made to do that by their boss. You know what I'm saying? The people that really didn't know exactly what was going on, but just was following orders. You're telling me if President Trump, so the governor is quote unquote the president of the state. President Trump is the president of the nation. When they go and they have briefings on what's going on, we know Trump don't like to read much, so he would, use any other president that you want to use. They get briefed on exactly what's going on. Well, this is what's happening, and this is what may happen. Look, we can prevent it. They get an idea of what's happening. Maybe some things that they keep away because they don't want him to be held like accountable or whatever, an accessory. But for the most part, you know exactly what's going on, and then you make a judgment based on the knowledge that you know. And so we already know that he knew. He got emails from his people. We found that out when they were going to court. And this is initially he said he didn't. So
his own state official said, no, I told him about this way before he says he knew. Like, that means Snyder perjured himself in front of Congress. Congressman Elijah Cummings said, we need to look into this. So Snyder not only has lied in front of Congress, not only to the people of Michigan, but his very inaction. And by the way, even if, let's say he did not know, well, you're the governor of the state. So if you don't know that thousands and thousands of people in one of your communities that you don't give a shit about are complaining of rashes and nosebleeds and hair loss and autoimmune issues and more, well, that's criminal negligence. That's indifference. There are criminal standards for gross negligence. So he has not been held liably criminally, which is a whole other story. But now you're saying that families who have either lost loved ones have stacks and stacks of medical bills. The people of Flint are not getting full Medicare for life. Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security do not cover all their illnesses, and they don't cover environmental doctors, which I interviewed Flint residents about because they don't have access to specialists.